I can remember back in 1947 when Channel 6 went on the air. We were the 13th station in the country. There were, at that time, 13,000 people in the area, and our coverage just increased by leaps and bounds. Sales became easy because every month we added thousands of people to our coverage pattern. Each month more, every couple of months, up went the rate increases. We started in a little room in the top floor of the Widener building, and we had the transmitter in there and the cameras and everything else. It was very hot. And subsequently, we're able to move to 46 in Market, expand a little, and then finally the later move, of course, here out at City Line Avenue. And I have seen it grow. I started in WFIL radio, out of the war, at WFIL radio into another kind of war, and WFIL radio morphed kind of into also WFIL TV, Channel 6, ABC, as they say now. They never refer to the call letters any longer. It's always Channel 6, ABC. I can remember a lot of the people who were with us then, and a lot of the good people who passed on. And it's really great to be a member of this organization and to be able to meet and to talk with and to reminisce with those with whom I worked in the beginnings of television in this city. We were the second station on the air. WPTZ was first, Channel 3. Channel 10 came on, as I remembered, about a year after we were on. And the competition has existed ever since. I still have trouble deciding whether Channel 10 is CAU or Channel 3 is NBC, PTZ, or whatever, but I try not to worry. I just enjoy television. Although, I must say, I'm happily out of it now because it's just a little too complicated for a geezer. And so I don't know how I would be doing that. Did very well in the years that we were here.
Okay. I'm going to mention a couple names, but they're not going to hear me. They're just going to hear you. So therefore, don't say, oh yes, I remember it, because they're not going to know I'm saying anything.
Okay.
But I'll mention some names, and then you can just, if you have any recollections, you can mention.
Okay.
Dr. Francis Davis.
Oh, I remember Frank very well. Frank was the first professional meteorologist, as far as I know, in television, certainly in this city. And Frank, funny thing about Frank used to wear his suits all the time. And so we had a salesman named Maxie Solomon, who I think now is 93 years old, lives in Florida.
11 is me.
That's okay, he's 95.
95? Oh, okay. Well, I don't exaggerate, but he lives in Florida. And he took Frank Davis out and bought him some suits, and he said to Frank, now you put these on to do your program, and you take them off after the program's over. You don't wear them must. But Frank was terrific. We started a thing with Frank where we said, Frank, you ought to be able to give a percentage of accuracy. And it was kind of interesting at first because he'd go on, he'd be right for 2 days, and he'd be wrong for one, so he would have 50% accuracy. And then it would go on, and pretty soon it narrowed down to where he ran, as I remember it, about 87-90% accurate in his weather forecasts.
Gunnar Beck.
Gunnar Beck, also one of the early anchor people. He came to us from the networks, and very skilled, very knowledgeable, but a Scandinavian. And he had the manner of a Scandinavian. He was not very warm on the air, but he was authoritative. People knew him for that, respected him for that. One of the early guys, and a terrific person.
Sally Starr.
Sally Starr, well, I'll never forget Sally Starr. You can't forget Sally. Sally came in, and we put Sally in charge of Popeye Theater. And the kids loved Popeye Theater. I remember one incident when there was an astronaut in orbit, and they were beginning to question whether they could get him down or not. And the calls came into the station. And the phone operator gave me one of them, a woman who was particularly vehement. And she called and she said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? My kids are used to watching Popeye Theater, and they're outside, and she started to cry. And I told her, lady, if you're not mother enough to take care of your children and handle them as you should, I can't. There's a man who's fighting for his life up there, and we don't worry about that. But Sally was terrific. Sally, I used to come from New Jersey too, as Sally did, and I would be coming out the Schuylkill Expressway, and a streak would go by me, and it would be Sally in her Cadillac, almost always late. I saw her one time she came to talk at the Rotary Club for a children's Christmas luncheon, and she had her finger in a splint. And I said, "What happened to your finger, Sally?" She said, "Well, I was putting on my girdle and I broke it." Well, if you know Sally, nice gal. She really was a terrific gal. Loved the kids. She had that. I've known so-called children's performers who didn't like kids, but Sally loved them, and she was a terrific hit. And I can remember years later, it must have been maybe 10 years ago now, she was given some kind of an honor by the city of Philadelphia. And she told me and asked me to be at City Hall when she got it. And I went over and I walked out with her, and we walked around, I guess, to the bus or somewhere, to my car, her car. And I can't tell you the number of people on the street, in the City Hall first of all, and on the street, who came up and recognized Sally Starr and thanked her for what she had done. And all she really was the hostess for Popeye Theater. It was the cartoons that drew the audience, but Sally had the friends.
Speaking of kids hosts that don't like kids, Howard Jones, Happy the Clown.
Happy the Clown I had him in mind when I made that comment. Howard was a great guy, but Howard came from WIP radio, and Howard he was Farmer Jones for a while on WFIL radio. And my boss and his boss at the time, Roger Clipp, really pushed this farm program, which really went nowhere in the city of Philadelphia. But and then later on, Howard became Happy the Clown, and he put on the grease paint and the suit, and he had the actions, but he didn't have the feeling in his heart for the kids that Sally Starr had. Howard Jones and Mary, his wife, who was Mary Jones, had the Mary Jones Show on WFIL radio, and had luncheons and had hundreds of people at luncheons about 3 or 4 times a year. A fantastic couple. Spent time in their home. Got up one morning because Roger Clipp said, "Go live with Howard Jones, find out how he does, learn about the farm business and so on." And I went out there, and Howard lived in this luxurious house, and I don't think he knew any more about the farm business than I did, because I live in New Jersey, which is the Garden State, as you know. But a terrific guy, never had any great feel for the kids.
Bob Horn.
Bob Horn I knew, of course, very well. Bob Horn did late night radio for a time, and then Bob Horn came up, and he had an idea for a program. We were not doing very well at Channel 6, and ABC was doing nothing in the afternoon. And Bob Horn came up with this idea, which turned out to be Bandstand. And for a while, we wondered how it was going to work. He knew exactly how to handle the kids. He handled the program well. He could handle the kids. The kids loved him. He had a great range of talent. And of course, it was that he knew. And it was very easy to draw these big names, because they were anxious to get the kind of promotion in Philadelphia that they knew they'd get with Bandstand. Well, ABC came in and said, "This is a good afternoon program, and we can fill out our schedule," which is nothing. They really had nothing in the afternoon. We said, "Okay, you can have the program. You can pay for the program with all of its trimmings and so on. But what we will not change is the way the program works." By that time, Dick Clark was emceeing the program. Bob had some problems, was no longer in radio or television in this area, went to Texas. I believe he died in Texas selling broadcast time. But ABC came to us and said, "We'd like American Bandstand. We want to run it for a couple of hours in the afternoon." And we said, "Fine, but you're not going to change a thing." Well, we thought we'd do so-and-so, and maybe with the kids we say we changed nothing. They said, "Well, would you make the title American Bandstand?" And we said, "Yes, we will." And that's how it happened. Bob Horn was not a part of that.
Okay, here's a wild card. Jerry Blavat.
Well, Jerry Blavat, I got to tell you, Jerry Blavat happens to be a very good friend of mine. I know Jerry has sometimes been regarded as being on the edge by some people. He MCs funerals in South Philadelphia and things like that. And the Geeter with a Heater is just a terrific person. My wife loves Jerry Blavitt because Jerry Blavitt always referred to her as Jane and not as George Koehler's wife. But Jerry was just great, and Jerry would go in and do his television show when he had it, and he'd have everything ground up to the threshold of pain, and I just love Jerry. I haven't seen him for years. I would hope maybe tonight he's here, but I don't know.
Jerry's a personal friend of mine. In fact, I'm going to stop that. But
okay.